The Greatest Thing in the World by Henry Drummond. The Contrast. Part 2. My name is Steve Van Eiderstein, and welcome to The Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. And I'm excited to bring you the rest of this chapter today. I mean, there's so much just in a couple of pages. You know, like, I love these old readings. I love these old books. I love to really dig into this stuff because the depth that they wrote in such a succinct way is, I almost feel like it's lost on us today when we talk about these things. So the way they used to communicate back at the turn of the 20th century, in the 1890s, early 1900s. That's where most of the authors I read from are originating. And it just seems as though they were able to get to the point a lot quicker than people do today. So I just love reading this stuff. And that's what I'm looking forward to. So really digging into the second half of the chapter. So just to remember, well, first of all, I want to tell everyone, thank you for the likes, for the subscribes, for the shares, for the everything. I really do appreciate it, whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're watching the shorts. Thank you for sharing on Facebook, on Instagram, TikTok even. So thank you all so much. I appreciate the support on the channel. And I hope it keeps on getting in front of people. You know, that's why I do this. So I just wanted to say thank you again for that. Now, I just want to remind you that this book that we're reading, The Greatest Thing in the World by Henry Drummond, is based on a Bible chapter from 1 Corinthians, and it is chapter 13. Now, just to follow up from last week's episode, I am officially switching to this book to do my notes and the reading out of officially, as this is one of what I found is actually this is one of the first releases of the address or of the book The Greatest Thing in the World by Henry Drummond, and this is its most original form. If you have a reprint, many of them they'll still follow along for the most part, but you will hear some differences in this book, and it has a little bit more. I don't know. I like the original better now that I've read through both, and so I will be reading out of the 1890 copy that I have. So if you're following along in your own, it will have different words. I couldn't find another version of this reprinted online. Most of it is the revised edition of this book. So you might have some difficulty tracking it down if you're looking for it. But I'm excited to dig into this for you. So where we ended last week, we're in the chapter, The Contrast, and he was talking about contrasting charity and faith with love, and how love was greater than the other two. And we got through most of charity, but I intentionally stopped just at the end of it because the next part of that reading is so impactful, and it has so much substance to it that I wanted to start off this week with it. So thank you for understanding. And so let's go ahead. We're going to get into the full reading. I'm going to reread one line from last week's too, just to kind of give us some context as to what we're getting into. And then here we go. So this is the second half of the chapter, The Contrast, in the book, The Greatest Thing in the World by Henry Drummond. Charity is only a little bit of love, and there is a great deal of charity without love. It is a very easy thing to toss a 25-cent piece to a beggar. It is a very easy thing to do when the love is in the withholding. is in withholding. We purchase relief from the sympathetic feelings which are aroused by the spectacle of misery at the cost of $0.25. It is too cheap for us, and it is often too dear for the beggar. We must either do more for him or less. Then Paul contrasts it with sacrifice and martyrdom. And I beg the little band, shall I not say the large band, of missionaries, and I have the honor to call some of you by this name for the first time. Shall I not say to you, missionaries, remember that though you give your bodies to be burned and have not love, it profits nothing. Nothing. You can take nothing greater to the heathen than the impress and the reflection of the love of God upon your own character. Nothing. That is the universal language. It will take you years to speak in Chinese or in the dialects of India, but from the day you land, the language of love, understood by all and eloquent to everyone, will be going forth from you, consciously or unconsciously, and it is the man who is the missionary. It is not among his words. In the heart of Africa, among the Great Lakes, I have come across black men and women who remembered the only white man they ever saw before, David Livingstone. And as you cross his footsteps in the dark continent, you see men's faces light up as they speak of the kind doctor who passed there years ago. They could not understand him, but they felt the love that beat in that great heart. They knew that it was love, that life was laying itself down for Africa, although he spoke no word. Take into your new sphere of labor, where you are laying down your life, that simple charm, and your life must succeed. You can take nothing greater. You may give every accomplishment, you may take every accomplishment. But if you give your body to be burned and have not love, it will profit you and the cause of Christ nothing. There we go. That's the rest of the chapter, the contrast. And like I said, there is a lot in there. And these two things that he contrasts here in this reading, the rest, finishing up charity and then also martyrdom, it's just so beautifully done. I love the example that he gives and the principle that he's talking about. It's really eye-opening, and it's realigning to see it and to read it again and to remember. We can get lost in what it looks like from the outside instead of what the right thing is to do, and we get lost in how it's being perceived rather than where it's coming from, and we lose the power in it when that happens. And I also appreciate Drummond because he speaks so plainly, and it was just, again, such a different time. Today, I believe we lose some of the message due to our desires to be politically correct, maybe. And I know this might not be looked on favorably, what I'm saying, but when we dress up things or we use other terminology which conflates or confuses the message or the reality of a situation, sometimes we're losing the truth of a message. And I like reading these older texts because it's much more direct without the overlay of some of the complications we've injected into our vocabulary today. And I do believe it's a lot of good intention, to be honest with you. I believe the desire for change in verbiage and language, it comes from a good place. And I understand people want to make step around words that are heavily associated with stigma, and have a lot of negative connotation attached to them. But sometimes those are the words that are warranted, and sometimes it sucks. I'm going to give speak on a personal note here, as to why I think, or why I believe it's important to talk about this. I'm somebody in recovery from substances and alcohol. And at the end of my using days, I was IV using heroin addict and cocaine addict. I think I might have talked about this with y'all before, but it's relevant again. So, and I went, finally, eventually, my lifestyle caught up with me, and I went to jail for the first time. I'd been arrested previously, but this was the first time I was going to jail, and I stayed in jail. And this was when I got a drug and alcohol evaluation, and during that evaluation, they said the person doing it shared or asked me questions about my use and how I was using, and I informed them that I was an IV using, so needle using, for those who don't know that, opiate addict, heroin user, cocaine user. And so they just looked at me and said, "Oh, okay, so you're just a junkie, right? You're like," it's just very plainly. And that was the first time anybody had ever called me that. Anyone had ever called me a junkie. And I was so upset. I was so upset with being given that label, and I couldn't believe that they said it, and I just rejected it. I wanted to push it away so much, and it stung, but it was true. And that moment helped me realize that I was living in this delusional little fantasy, trying to separate myself from all of these people that were what I would consider to be junkies. But that didn't end to apply, but making it so that terminology didn't apply to me. And that was the first time I realized that it did fully. Maybe first time that I fully acknowledged that it did. It's always kicking around in my head, but I didn't want anyone to know. And if I didn't say it, then no one else was going to say it, and blah, 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 So it stung, because I didn't like the associations, the connotations, the stigma, the picture I had in my head of what that word meant, what junkie meant. I certainly didn't want to be that. But the reality of it is, it fit. It was an accurate assessment of who I was. It was an accurate understanding of my circumstance and situation. I just didn't like it. But that brought me back to reality. And so it's important to me that we use direct and plain language as much as possible. It's important to me that we don't sugarcoat things, because it's in that sugarcoating that we lose the ability to help others, I believe. We lose the truth of situations and circumstances. Now, it doesn't need to be done with malicious intent, by any means. But sometimes an honest assessment of your current situation warrants a painful truth. And I think we get a little bit of that with both of these topics. So with charity and with the martyrdom. So I wanted to give a little perspective as to why I thought it was just so important, the way he writes, and the way a lot of these authors I read on this podcast write. So let's go into breaking down the reading a little bit and really dive in to his transparency here. So the first part is charity is only a little bit of love, and there is a great deal of charity without love. So this is the last part we read last week. But then he goes into this. It is a very easy thing to toss a 25-cent piece to a beggar. It is a very easy thing to do that when the love is in withholding. Okay. So this is a spot that if you have, if you're following along, your book will be different. He says a copper to a beggar. And this is structured a little bit differently, but I liked the way he said it in this original text. Actually, I love this whole thing. I love the idea that he's bringing into this. So what we're doing here is getting an example of charity done without love, right? So it was an act of giving done for all the wrong reasons. And some people might hear this and go, that doesn't make any sense. That the example he gave wasn't great, because obviously this was a charitable thing. We'll dive into that, like the next 2-3 sentences will explore it a little bit more, but he's really establishing, giving us a scenario where charity is not done with love. And why that's important is, again, this is the contrast. This whole chapter is about why love is the greatest thing in the world. And right now he's talking about it contrasted up against charity. And the fact that charity can be done for the wrong intention and charity can be done for selfish reason makes love greater than charity. Charity can be a manifestation of love, but it is only one. Love can manifest in a whole plethora of ways. And we need to remember that. So this is why he's giving us this example, just to show why love is greater than charity. Now, Drummond shares that it is, I love the example that he gives, because it's one that's going to resonate with a lot of people. It's one that's going to give a depth and a perspective that I don't believe is talked about very often, right? So when he's saying it's easy to give a quarter to a beggar, when the truly loving thing is in withholding. Now, why would it be in withholding, right? So we're giving, when we give the money to the beggar, give a quarter to the beggar, that's not a loving thing to do. The true loving would be more in withholding the money from them. And that act of giving the 25 cents is actually a selfish thing to do. Sometimes charity can be a selfishly motivated thing to do, and anything done selfishly cannot contain love, and it cannot be of God, because God is love. If you remember, we talked about this last time. So Sorry. So, and if it's done for, so if charity's practiced for incorrect reasons and it's practiced for selfish reasons, guess what? It's not going to have any impact. It's not going to do any good. It's going to be just completely defeated as a act of loving kindness and support. And this extends to so much, and so many people perform acts of charity, not because it's loving to do, but because it makes them feel better, because it lets them check a box to say, hey, look at me, I've done my good deed for the day, right? I've qualified as a charitable person, so because I've done this thing, so I can feel good about myself, right? And or they do things so they can share it with other people, right? Let me go tell people how good of a person I am because I did this thing. Charity, unfortunately, many times today is done for the incorrect reason. Many times today it's done for a selfish, with a selfish motivation and intention, which is kind of heartbreaking, actually, at the end of the day. It's a very sad thing to realize this. So let's explore this example that Drummond gave us of selfishly motivated charity, of giving the beggar the coin, because it's just a coin. It's giving a beggar a little bit of money. Why isn't that a good thing? Well, he lays it right out with us. He says, we purchase relief from the sympathetic feelings which are aroused by the spectacle of misery at the cost of $0.25. When the note I wrote down was, wow, what a convicting and almost damning statement that is. Because it is. What we feel a certain way because we see somebody suffering, and we want to make ourselves feel differently than the sympathetic, painful emotions, maybe, or it's more of an uncomfortable emotion of, oh, this person's really bad off, and it makes me sad, it makes me uncomfortable, it makes me this, it makes me that. So I'm gonna do this minimal gesture so I feel better about helping this suffering human being. We purchase relief from the sympathetic feelings which are aroused by the spectacle of misery at the cost of $0.25. How cheaply we are, how cheaply we use other people for our own relief, right? There's such truth in this observation. There's such reality in this accusation. It can't be understated. It really can't. It can't be. We can't minimize this. It can't be shrugged off. We do this all the time. It's painful to realize when you open your eyes to the reality that I'll keep it on the eye, that I do things just to make myself feel better from uncomfortable emotions, and I do it all the time, and that it is a selfishly motivated thing when I do that. It's not done from love. It's so I get relief from my own feelings. And that I do that all the time in all different instances, in all different variations. It's kind of painful to realize that. I think a lot of people go through this realization and go, oh, wow, how horrifically selfish I am, right? I'm uncomfortable with me. I don't like myself. So I'm going to do whatever it is I've got to do to make my feelings feel better, to get someone else to like me so I can selfishly have relief from my own self-loathing, or to make myself feel like a good person by giving $0.25, right? To pay an empty compliment and whatever it might be. So we buy our peace of mind for a coin in a trivial and unloving act of charity for our own personal gain. People do this all the time. I did it all the time. I can still do it if I'm not being very careful about why I'm doing the things I'm doing. I have to be intentional about these things. I have to be specific. I have to be transparent and doing them from the right motivation. When we can't stand the way we feel, when we see whatever it is, we want to make ourselves feel better. It's because in these moments, it has nothing to do with the person. They bring up uncomfortable feelings within ourselves, and then we want to feel comfortable. So we selfishly give something or act in a way that will really do no good for the individual, is what he's saying here. Our selfishness shows by the trivial act we do. Because what does giving a beggar a quarter do at the end of the day? Why do we take such hollow and empty actions to just simply make ourselves feel better? Again, he just is so clear and concise on this. He's not, there's no mincing of words. There's no he's not phrasing it in such a way to not offend. He's being very, very specific and very direct in saying, you are being selfish. You are not actually being charitable. You're not coming from a loving place when you are doing this. This is a loveless act of charity that really harms the individual more than it helps them. That's what he goes into. And again, so many people do this, and it can be this scenario specifically or many others. Like there's when we make false promises in a moment because we're uncomfortable, we have a hard time saying no. When we pay a hollow compliment because the truth will be uncomfortable. When we avoid conflict that needs to be engaged with just because we're scared of the tension that might follow it. We like to escape our uncomfortable feelings or the potential uncomfortable feelings even that we're scared of walking through. So, a lot to chew on with this, a lot to contemplate, a lot to think over, and quite important at the end of the day. So, then he finishes this comparison, the contrast to charity with the following. It's too cheap. It's too cheap for us and too dear for the beggar. We must do either more for him or less. Fantastic end to this. That's just the ultimate, like the perfect way to end this little dive into charity and loveless charity of that. Because truly, if you wanted to help this beggar, these false acts of charity are not doing it. They're actually more detrimental. The truly loving thing is to do way more than just give him a quarter or to do nothing. That's the truly loving thing. It's not this, hey, let me feel better at the expense of your own suffering, right? The selfish acts have no benefit to that individual, but they only benefit ourselves, right? This is a hard concept for some people to realize. I only know it because how to say this? I very much believe what Drummond's talking about here. I believe that the loving thing to do is to not enable someone's ability to destroy themselves or to continue to exist in their own misery. That we shouldn't participate in that. That if we truly want to do something charitable and be helpful and loving to somebody, that it will be a much grander gesture or a much more impactful thing that's done than just giving them some pocket change. All that does is just allows them to continue on in the life that they're living, which is not something that we can, which is not something that's going to benefit him. It's not going to something that benefits anybody. So when we do this, we're harming people. And if we can't do more, because we can't always do what might be needed to help somebody in a moment, then we should do nothing. Providing somebody the means to harm themselves is not loving. Delaying the full weight of the consequences of someone's actions is not loving. People did that for me. They tried to stave off the consequences. They tried to stave off the pain and the reality of what my situation was entailing. And it didn't work. It never worked. I just kept digging my hole deeper and deeper and deeper. So, if we can't do more, we should do nothing. Do not buy your own sense of comfort at the expense of a quarter to a beggar. So, in conclusion here, Drummond is saying love is greater than charity because charity can be done in a way that is selfish and self-serving and actually done at the detriment of others for the false appearance of love, but it's not truly love. So, love can never be something distorted. A truly loving act will always be beneficial. A truly loving act will always be a beautiful thing. Now, we're going to go into the last section here. This is where he contrasts and speaks about the love and martyrdom from the chapter in Corinthians. And this is a pretty, this is another, like I said, this is another topic that is going to probably maybe ruffle some feathers for people because he doesn't mince words again. He's just very much like is telling people like, hey, regardless of what you do, if it's not from love, it doesn't mean anything. So I want to also say like this book was originally a lecture given, and the lecture was, I looked it up, to Northfield Seminary students. Okay. It was, well, the first time it was given, it was done in Henry Drummond's home to a couple of his friends, and one of his friends, I forget the individual's name, enjoyed it so much and thought so highly of this talk that he asked him to present it to his seminary students. So this was given and recorded this first time to missionaries in training, kind of. to people that were going to be going out and carrying the message, right? That's why it was such an important topic to be expanded upon, and why he was stressing the importance of carrying love into everything that you do, and why love was the greatest thing in the world. So, and that's why he references missionaries and their charge, I guess, their the direction that they'll be taking. So here we go. Here's the first part of it. Then Paul contrasts it, being love, with sacrifice and martyrdom. Remember that though you give your bodies to be burned and have not love, it profits nothing. Nothing. He does that. He emphasizes nothing a couple of times in this chapter. Right. So first, I want to highlight that he's not just talking about martyrdom in the sacrifice of someone's life. Like, he's also talking about it just in sacrifice in general. Okay. So right there, he says with sacrifice and martyrdom, right? It's the generally sacrifice overall, because people will sacrifice things and they'll be like, oh my, I sacrifice all of these things. But when done for the wrong reasons, you're just selfishly gaining it, whether you want to play victim or whether you want to hold something over other people's heads, or whether you just want to claim the martyr role so you feel justified in your self-pity. I don't care. But there's a lot of people that play the martyr for the complete wrong reasons, and it loses all depth and weight to it. And he says, if you give your bodies to be burned and do not have love, it profits nothing. Nothing. You could give the ultimate sacrifice and still not achieve anything if it's not done for the right reasons. Right? So if you're sacrificing anything, you really have to take a look at yourself and say, why am I doing this thing? Is it out of obligation? Is it out of a selfish desire? Is it out of a fear of doing wrong, right? And you don't want to be perceived as a bad person. You want to be perceived as a good person. So you're selfishly trying to satisfy your ego or get the correct reputation or prestige, right? So you've got to take a look at why you're doing what you're doing, right? Check your motivation, check your selfishness and your self-centeredness, because it shows up in ways you wouldn't even believe were possible, right? Even when you think you're doing really good, but you're just doing it so you feel better about you. You might as well just not sacrifice it. You might as well not even go through with it, because it's not going to have the impact that you want it to, or that you're hoping it does, as a secondary effect of your selfish desires. There's tons of wrong motives. Remember this, tons of wrong motives. And the only effective motive to be genuinely of service to people, to genuinely convey love, to genuinely want to lift and build and heal, are sacrifices of any sort made from love. Even if it's the ultimate sacrifice, it will mean nothing if not from love. Now, this next line, I really, I got this whole comparison that he does. He says, over the next couple excerpts here, he says, you can take nothing greater to the heathen than the impress and the reflection of God upon your own character. Nothing. That is the universal language. This is what I talk about the whole time. That's what this whole podcast is about. It's trying to reflect the character qualities that your God has, the God of your understanding, and have those character qualities manifest in you in one way or another, right? And you carry those with you: the love, the kindness, the forgiveness, the courage, the integrity, the honesty, the service, the true charity, right? These are the things that we want to embody with love within ourselves, right? That is the biggest message we can bring. We've heard people speak about love. We can, we all know people that talk a good game, but when you're around them, it's just not there. But we also know people, they're just normal people existing in an everyday life, but their hearts and their souls are so filled with love that people around them just become happier, that people are healthier, people have joy, right? Just from being around somebody that doesn't talk about it. It is in their being. It is in the fiber of who they are. It is in their very essence to be love. Love is always communicated with our soul. That energy we have about us. We all have those people we've wanted to stay around because they just had this aura, I'll say, this energy, this sense of love and peace and serenity and tranquility about them, that whenever we were close to them, we just could take a little bit more of a deep breath. We could just relax a little bit more. So, and then Drummond goes into the following as well. That language of love, understood by all and eloquent to everyone, will be going forth from you, consciously or unconsciously. It is the man who is the missionary. It is not his words. So you might not even realize this is what's going on, right? You might not even realize that this is the type of person that you are. You might not even, some people just embody this. And they didn't even know that it was happening, right? But love will speak through you without your consent, turns out. Love will speak through you whether you realize it or not. When you carry love within you, and you truly carry it within you, then your whole life changes and you can impact so many people. I love that line he says here. It is the man who is the missionary. Remember, we're speaking to new missionaries going out into the world. It is the man who is the missionary. It is not his words. They don't have to understand you to know you bring love with you. You might not be able to communicate effectively to know that you bring love with you. And then he says, take love, take into your life. Oh, actually, sorry. Almost got ahead of myself there. This is where he had that story about the Dr. Livingstone. I don't know if it's Livingston or Livingstone, but I looked him up, and he was a very well-respected man by every account that I found. I'm sure if we looked hard enough, we could find someone who didn't like him, but he was a doctor that traveled to Africa, and he mapped a lot of Africa. He helped a lot of people along the way. He was very well respected, not just by his peers, but the people he was helping. And I loved this story because people, Drummond said that people remembered that man's love about him. They couldn't understand a word that he said, but I couldn't communicate verbally, but they knew that he came from a place of love. Now, how amazing is that? What a beautiful thing. And to be remembered that way by those who you shared your love with. And they didn't need to know more than that. That's what I love about that story, is they didn't need to know more than he was there for a loving and kind reason. That can be us. That can be you. That can be me. That can be the reflection of God upon your own character, right? That Christ-like character we talk about here, that righteous character, that principled, virtuous character that we get to practice, that is aligned with the God of our understanding in whatever way that is. We get to practice that and carry that. And we get to run into people that may never remember or remember what we said, but they remember how we made them feel. And that is huge. And he goes into this, after this story about Dr. Livingstone. He says, take into your life sphere of labor where you are laying down your life that simple charm. And your life must succeed. You can take nothing greater. So whatever you're doing, whatever venue of life you're going out into, whatever career you're pursuing, take love. Take that charm, they called it, and you will be successful. You'll be successful in carrying a message you didn't even know you were carrying. You will be successful in helping people and helping others heal and showing them a different way of life. You will be successful in the relationships that you engage in if you just carry love with you. And there's nothing greater you can take too. That is the foundational piece to everything that you do. And if you remember that and you bring that into it, then my God, everything will work out for you. Might not work out in your timeline. It might not work out the way you think it should. All right. And life is funny that way. But if you take love with you into everything that you do, your life can change. Others' lives can change. And if you actually want to impact and actually genuinely want to be of service, you got to do it with love. Then he closes this chapter with, you may take every accomplishment, but if you give your body to be burned and have not love, it will profit you in the cause of Christ nothing. Again, he says nothing. You could do absolutely everything. You could give everything of yourself. You could take every action. You could follow in the steps of every saint or every spiritual leader. But if you're doing it without love, it will actually do nothing. Love is the greatest thing in the world because of that. Without it, there is nothing else. But with it is everything. What an incredible, incredible contrast he gave us in the uplifting of the importance of love, to explore that. Through love, there is everything. Love that. Absolutely. Fantastic chapter. So that brings us to the end of the first chapter here, the contrast. Next is going to be the analysis. And this is quite a long, lengthy chapter, so it'll be broken down into multiple sections. We're going to go, I believe I'm going to do every single fruit of the Spirit, I think is what it's called, with its own episode when we get to those in the chapter, because he breaks those down, that whole list in chapter 13, First Corinthians. So we'll have at least probably 10 episodes about this analysis portion. So I'm extremely happy to be able to be going through this with y'all, and I hope you find it beneficial yourself. So I appreciate y'all sticking around with me and going for the ride with me as well. So I'm looking forward to the next week. Until next time, thanks.